Welcome back to the Naughty Corner. Well, the election results are in and they weren't surprising, or at least I didn't find them very surprising. I gather a lot of the electorate races raised some eyebrows, but I don't follow politics to that level with any vigilance. It's obvious people were very disillusioned with Labour, and as much as I'm not his fan, Jacinda really did offload a hospital pass to Hipkins with her early retirement after Hindenburging their popularity. This was only reinforced when in his concession speech the former PM said they'd had the biggest ground campaign in their history.
Thank you everybody so much for being here tonight, and thank you for everything that you have done over these last 6 weeks. We have run the biggest ground campaign, knocking on doors and calling people on phones that we have ever run.
So it wasn't for lack of funding or effort, Labour was simply disliked. This resulted in a boom for the National as well as for the minor establishment parties, as people clearly wanted a change. Not the true minor parties, mind you. I feel that they had more chance of getting in this year than ever before due to the co-signed agreement by all sitting parties not to interact with the protesters a little over a year ago, making the establishment look like a bit of a uni party. They got the same weak results they always do for a number of reasons. Compared to previous generations, current Kiwis are a timid bunch. They're also quite tribalist, and many were influenced by the strong advocating for smart voting. Talking to a friend of mine, he felt it was because New Zealanders are put off seeing a myriad of actors who can't unite. It looks quarrelsome and not reassuring. It's an interesting idea. Personally, I don't like seeing the other extreme of that, where everyone in a large group appears to be on the exact same page. It comes across as a bit cultish to me, but I think we all agree that the minor parties would have benefited with more unification. That's obvious. I think one of the most interesting takeaways from the evening was the result for Te Pāti Māori. In my previous video on smart voting, I said the number of seats in Parliament was a constant. But I was wrong there, being unaware of the possibility for an overhang. An overhang happens when a party secures more electorate seats than their MMP share would dictate. This is what happened with Te Pāti Māori, who with a 2.5% party vote were entitled to 3 seats but secured 4 via electorates, and so an extra seat will need to be provided in Parliament this term. Any party can achieve this, even a minor party with 0.1% of the vote, and for some this was their core strategy. This would probably have been a good idea for the presenters to point out on the night, as this overhang was achieved via the Māori electorate, something that its existence has been the subject of contention for some time now. It is after all a form of co-governance, but much smaller than what had been proposed under Labour and debated recently. When the Māori electorate was first established in 1867, it had just 4 seats, but the number fluctuates depending on the 5 yearly census results, which then determine how many seats the electorate will have in the following election or two. Given that all things Māori are quite in vogue currently, there were 7 seats available this year. The introduction of the Māori electorate itself was done because at the time there was a requirement of land ownership in order to enter Parliament, which most Māori did not meet, because rather than owning land as an individual, it was often shared amongst a community. This was intended to give Māori more representation in governing New Zealand. It was passed during a time there was still warfare between the government and some North Island hapu, and was seen as a way to reduce conflict between the cultures. As with the requirement to be male, the requirement of land ownership has long passed as a restriction on parliamentary participation, and many have argued so should the separate nature of the Māori electorate. On the same night as our election, a referendum was held across the ditch in Australia, where a movement called The Voice sought to introduce co-governance there. It was soundly defeated, failing to gain the majority in a single state. With recent rhetoric from both ACT and New Zealand First being against co-governance, and with one if not both of these parties being almost guaranteed at this point to hold some ruling share as the new government is formed, we'll need to keep an eye on what happens with the Māori electorate moving forward. What I want to leave you with, however, is something positive. Well, unless you're a Labour supporter, I'm an optimist, not a magician. If you voted for one of the minor parties, you can sleep well knowing you're guided by principle over popular opinion. If you voted for National, ACT or even New Zealand First, congratulations, here's your chance to prove me wrong. I honestly hope I am in error concerning these 3 establishment parties. If they halt or even reverse our slide into woke authoritarian globalist policies, I'll be over the moon. A lot of us will be, so get it done. Anyway, having mentioned Australia, I'm off to visit our Pacific neighbours tomorrow, so I won't be uploading anything for a little while, but when I return we'll start looking at some of the deeper drivers behind things like co-governance, Hamas's actions against Israel, etc. The ideologies that shape and drive us all. Until then, thanks for watching and have a good one.